Hi everyone. Over the years, I've written dozens of introductions, prefaces, forewords, and even afterwords to books. Most of them my own books, but occasionally for other people as well. And recently, I've gathered quite a lot of them together, really for my own interest, and I've made a book out of them. I've called it The Clockmaker's Box, and it's just being launched now. I'm really happy with it because it gathers together a whole miscellany of ideas and themes that were kind of dispersed, and it's made me very pleased putting it together. And it always makes me really happy to create a book where there wasn't one before. I want to read the introduction to The Clockmaker's Box, which will explain why I called it that. Once upon a time, there was a clockmaker whose clocks were regarded as the most beautiful mechanical objects ever created. Adorned with fine tracery and exquisite detail, the clocks were extremely expensive to make. The only person in the kingdom who could afford to purchase them was the monarch. With an eye for excellence and the funds to pay for it, he regularly ordered the clocks, which he presented to other kings. Whenever one of the clocks was finished, the clockmaker would deliver it to the palace himself, displaying it on a simple silken cushion. One day, the king, who had commissioned an especially splendid clock, sent word to the clockmaker asking him to make a presentation box worthy of the timepiece. Following the orders, the master craftsman fashioned a rather plain leather-bound box in which the clock was presented to a visiting monarch. The next time the king ordered one of the clocks, he asked that the box be a little more ornate, reflecting the sumptuous object it contained. Time passed. Each year, the king ordered more and more of the clocks. Utterly obsessed with them, he befriended other sovereigns merely so he could present them with one of the marvelous mechanical objects. Each time he placed an order, the king asked that the container be a little more ornate than the time before. Following instructions, the clockmaker added extra layers of golden filigree, finer grade leather, and lavish details that cost a small fortune. With every order placed, the boxes became all the more magnificent, although the clocks themselves stayed very much the same. By now, the boxes were so extraordinarily sublime that everyone followed the monarch's example and became preoccupied with the containers rather than the mechanisms inside. The reversal of sense was so complete that the clockmaker himself was referred to as a box maker. Fearful of being singled out for expressing his opinion, the monarch's chief advisor held his tongue, even though it was obvious the sovereign was confusing contents with container. When the king eventually passed on to the happy hunting grounds, a tremendous mausoleum was prepared, decorated with details from the legendary boxes the master craftsman had made. A special slab of marble was mined, and the king's long appellation and many titles were inscribed in lovely lettering upon it. Beneath them, in pride of place, were etched the words, King, Ruler, Lover of Boxes. The reason I mention this story is because even a humble author is at times in danger of behaving, or rather misbehaving, like a king. Just as the sovereign encased the clocks in boxes of astonishing delight, a writer risks falling prey to suffocating their work with introductions, prefaces, and afterwords. I wrote the text presented in this book as a way of complementing my own corpus, and in some cases the writing of others, so as to draw attention to certain themes and ideas, allowing the reader to observe the material in a different way. When I had finished my first travel book, my father, the writer and the thinker, Idris Shah, reviewed the manuscript. Having suggested I change the book's title, he urged me to delete the extensive introduction. I asked him why. Because no one reads introductions, he said. Why not, Baba? Because they think they'll be boring beyond belief. To anyone who happens to find the Clockmaker's box in their hands, I offer apologies and thanks. Apologies for boring you senseless, if indeed I do. And thanks for supporting my need to release my work how I wish. Thank you for checking it out and for supporting my work.